what's right for the American people. I yield the floor, Madam President.
Madam President, I ask consent that Senator McCain and I be permitted to engage in a discussion regarding the health care matter.
Without objection.
Madam President, last Friday we heard from two entities. We heard from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services indicating that health care costs in this country would actually go up under the Reid bill. And we also heard from CNN, from CMS and from CNN. We heard from CNN how the American people feel about this health care measure. And at the time when all of the polls indicate the American people do not favor this bill, do not want us to pass it, when the government's actuary indicates that the bill will actually not cut health care costs, which we thought was what this debate was all about in the first place, we are being confronted here with a procedure that is quite unusual, an effort to restructure 1/6 of the economy through a massive bill that it appears almost no one has seen. And at what point, I would ask my friend and colleague from Arizona, at what point could we expect that the American people would have an opportunity to see this measure that's been off in the conference room here being turned into sausage in an effort to get the 60 votes?
You know, I'd say to my friend, the Republican leader, that, you know, I've seen a lot of processes around here and a lot of negotiations and a lot of discussions, but I must admit that I have not seen one quite like this one, nor do I believe my leader has. You know, I was on the floor in a colloquy with the assistant Democratic leader a couple of days ago, and I said, "What's in the bill?" And he said, "None of us know." Now, talk about being kept in the dark. And you know, you have to, I'd say to my friend from Kentucky, you have to put this into the context of what the President of the United States said in his campaign. Because the whole campaign, as I well know better than anyone, was all based on change. And on the issue specifically surrounding health care reform, and I quote, the then candidate Obama on October 18th, 2009 said, quote, "I'm going to have all the negotiations around a big table televised on C-SPAN so that people can see who is making arguments on behalf of their constituents and who are making arguments on behalf of the drug companies or the insurance companies." And he went on to say that a couple more times. So I would ask my friend, hasn't it been several days that we've basically been gridlocked over one amendment, which is the amendment by the senator from North Dakota that would allow drug reimportation from Canada and other countries? So then, guess what the reports are today? Pharma renegotiating its deal. Inside Health Policy's Baker, Packwood, Lofton, and Coughlin report, the pharmaceutical industry is negotiating with the White House and lawmakers on a revised health care deal under which the industry would ante up cuts beyond the $80 billion it agreed to this summer, possibly by agreeing to policies that would further shrink the donut hole. And I won't go into all the details of that. So just a few minutes ago on the floor, guess what? They announced that there would be some change. There would be some change made, an amendment that would be included in the manager's package. And maybe, I would ask my friend, is it maybe the case that the majority leader, who is having a meeting as we speak of all the Democrat senators behind closed doors without C-SPAN, has cut another deal along with the White House with guess who? The pharmaceutical companies, who have raised prices some 9% of the prescription drugs this year. I mean, this is a process that would give the American people don't deserve. I would ask.
Yeah, I would say to my friend from Arizona, this is a process that give making sausage a bad name.
But so we were hung up for, or shall I say, gridlocked for 2 or 3 days, all entire over the weekend. the Republican leader even agreed to a unanimous consent agreement that would allow side-by-side Democrat amendment, and that was not agreed to until over at the White House, according to this report, Pharma renegotiating its deal, and apparently they now have sufficient votes to defeat the Dorgan Amendment, which, as of last summer, according to the New York Times, said the last deal, shortly after striking that agreement, the trade group, the Pharmaceutical Research Manufacturers of America, or Pharma, also set aside $150 million for advertising to support the health care legislation. Is this the kind of process? Is this change in Washington? Is this changing the climate in Washington, I asked my friend? Or is it not only business as usual, but in my opinion, I haven't seen anything quite like this one.
Well, I would say to my friend, it's certainly not changing business as usual in Washington. And even more importantly than that, it's not changing American health care for the better, which is what we all thought this whole thing was about when we started down this path of seeing what we could do to improve America's health care, which almost everyone correctly understands is already the best in the world.
And hasn't there been charge after charge that Republicans are, quote, filibustering, and Republicans have been blocking passage of this legislation? I would ask my friend, hasn't the Republican leader offered a series of amendments that we could get locked into and having votes on?
Yeah, I'd say to my friend from Arizona, we've been trying to get votes on the Crapo amendment, for example, since last Tuesday. It'll be a week tomorrow. Maybe at some point we'll be able to have amendments again here, but we started off on this bill with each side offering amendments, and we went along pretty well until I think the majority decided it was not only better to write the bill in secret, it was better not to have any amendments to the bill. So they began to filibuster our efforts to have senators have an opportunity to vote on aspects of this bill, such as the $500 billion cuts in Medicare, which we fortunately were able to get votes on, the $400 billion in new taxes, which we would like to be able to get votes on. This is the core of the bill. The American people have every right, I would say to my friend from Arizona, to expect us to debate the core of the bill, the essence of the bill, which is not, of course, going to be changed behind closed doors or during this meeting that's going on Democrats only.
So as I understand it, there's a meeting going on behind closed doors again. There's no C-SPAN cameras. And according to the Washington Post this morning, it says the Senate will resume debate Monday afternoon on a popular proposal to allow U.S. citizens to buy cheaper drugs from foreign countries, which led to a last-minute lobbying push by drug makers last week and bogged down negotiations over a health care reform bill. It goes on to say the fight over the imported drugs proposal poses a particularly difficult political challenge for President Obama, who co-sponsored a similar bill when he was in Congress and who included funding for the idea in his first budget. But the pharmaceutical industry, which had been a key supporter of health care reform after reaching an agreement with the White House earlier this year, has responded with a fierce lobbying campaign aimed at killing the proposal, focusing on Democratic senators from states with large drug and research sectors. So it'll be interesting to watch the vote. And I would also point out to my friend, it's clear that the CBO, if we allow drug reimportation, will save $100 billion, according to CBO. And the deal that was cut, the first deal that was cut with the White House was that they would reduce by $80 billion. So they had a $20 billion cushion. Now it'll be very interesting to see what the latest deal is and how the vote goes. But again, I'd like to ask my Republican friend, you get a little cynical around here from time to time when you see sometimes deals cut and things done behind closed doors. And I really, I'm past the point of frustration. I'm just getting a little bit sad about this because I think we know that we're now bumping up against the Christmas, some time we're going to break for Christmas. And so the pressures now are going to be even more intense, because I think it's well known and reported that if they don't get a deal before we go out for Christmas, then it'll be very much like a fish sitting out in the sun. After a while, it doesn't smell very good when people see a 2,000-page bill which has all kinds of provisions in it. So I understand, without C-SPAN cameras, that all the 60 Democratic members of this body are going to go down to the White House for another meeting tomorrow. But and then we'll see what happens out of that.
Talk about an example of manufacturing